Championship youth academies have produced some serious talents over the years, and that got me thinking about some of the best players that each championship club has produced from their academy and just how valuable they are in 2023. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing in today's video, guys, taking the most valuable academy graduate from each championship club and ranking them on their value from least to most expensive based on Transfermarkt figures. Without any further ado, let's jump in. Surprisingly enough, Sheffield Wednesday's most valuable former academy player in 2023 is actually a 36-year-old Jamie Vardy, who according to Transfermarkt still holds down a value of 2.5 million. Vardy spent his formative years with the Owls but was ultimately let go aged 16, and he then had to build his career back up in the lower leagues before finally getting his chance again in the EFL by Leicester. It's fair to say he's not looked back since, and at 36 years old still knows how to find the back of the net. Next up we have Cardiff's most valuable former academy player in 2023, and it's Luton captain Tom Lockyer. He's finally got his crack at Premier League football with Luton, but he actually started out his youth career with Cardiff. Born and raised in the Welsh capital, Lockyer was ultimately released by Cardiff as a 16-year-old as he was deemed too small to play the position. These days he's valued at 3 million. Jack Stevens is Plymouth's most valuable former academy player, as he holds down the market value of 3.5 million according to Transfermarkt. He made just 6 senior appearances for Plymouth after coming through their academy before he was promptly picked up by Southampton, where he still plays to this day. Jerry Yates is a former Rotherham Academy graduate, and these days he holds down the transfer value of 4 million. After coming through the ranks at Rotherham, he never quite clicked at the senior level for the Millers. Yates' career really took off when he left Rotherham in 2020 to join Blackpool, and after some prolific years with the Seasiders, now plays for Swansea. Samuel Edozie spent his formative years in the Millwall Academy before he was promptly picked up by Manchester City. Now playing for Southampton, he does look like a hell of a talent, and he's got a transfer value of 8 million. Aberi Eze was also present in the Millwall Academy, but more on him later. Chris Wood spent his youngest years playing in New Zealand, but after a successful trial with West Brom, he was snapped up by their youth academy. And it didn't take long until he turned pro, and West Brom ultimately flipped a profit on the striker. The goals have somewhat dried up for him recently, but he's still playing in the Premier League to this day, and now with Nottingham Forest. Swansea have produced some great talents over the years, but the most valuable former academy player in 2023 is Daniel James. Now the Welsh winger did spend his formative years with Hull City, and Swansea actually paid a fee of around about £72,000 to sign James for their youth academy, but he continued his development with the Welsh club, and that's where he really had his breakthrough. Swansea eventually cashed in on James for a fee of around 15 million when Man United came swooping in, and his career didn't quite take off at the time like a few people had thought it might have. Of course, these days he's back in the Championship, now playing for Leeds United. Max Aarons only left Norwich City this summer, but he is their most valuable former academy player in 2023. The fullback holds down the value of 16 million, and Norwich have really gone through all the highs and lows with Aarons, with multiple promotions and relegations. The move to Bournemouth this summer was probably the best thing for his career. Next up we have Middlesbrough's most valuable academy graduate, and it's Marcus Tavernier, another player who's now playing for Bournemouth coincidentally. A few eyebrows were raised at that move last summer, but Tavernier's gone on to do brilliant with the Cherries, scoring 5 goals and getting 4 assists last season. He was a crucial point in them surviving in the Premier League, and these days the 24-year-old is valued at 17 million. Preston North End's most valuable former academy player is actually Josh Brownhill, who holds down the market value of 18 million in 2023. Now Brownhill spent his formative years with Manchester United before he was promptly released and the North End Academy swooped in. And looking back on things now, Preston probably made a mistake on Brownhill in letting him go a bit too early. We saw Bristol City snatching him up, and that's where his career really started to take off. He had some great years with them before Burnley promptly came in for him, and what a career he's had since. I wasn't actually aware before doing this video that Nick Pope started his career out with Ipswich Town, but from age 10 to 16 he spent with the Ipswich Academy. The England international really had to be patient about building his way up the footballing ladder, but what a career he's gone on to have. And with Newcastle these days, he's ranked as one of the best shot stoppers in the league and is valued at 20 million. Philip Billing came up through the Huddersfield Academy after he was picked up from Denmark. After impressing with the Terriers, Bournemouth promptly picked him up, and that's still where he plays to this day. A crucial player for the Cherries, Billing brings in a transfer value of 20 million. And Bristol City's most valuable academy graduate also brings in a transfer value of 20 million, and that's Alex Scott, who was sold to Bournemouth this summer. I think after the success of last season, all the Bristol City fans really realised what a talent they had on their hands in Scott. Undoubtedly, I think a future international. The future's still very bright with Scott. Nathan Collins joined the Stoke City Academy in 2016, and it didn't take long for the Irish defender to have an impact. After some impressive years with the first team, Stoke eventually flipped him for a profit when they sold him to Burnley. He then moved on to Wolves where he impressed, and last summer joined Brentford. At 22 years old, he brings in a market value of $22 million in 2023. Sunderland's most valuable academy graduate is next, and that's Jordan Pickford, who also brings in a market value of $22 million in 2023. Speaking as a Preston fan, of course, we had him on loan from Sunderland. I'd say during that season where North End had him, he was one of the best, if not the best, goalkeepers in the Championship that year. He went on to be brilliant for Sunderland despite their struggles at the time, and obviously then got his move to Everton, but it's really been on the international stage where Pickford's thrived. Next up, we have Leeds' most valuable academy graduate in 2023, and that's Calvin Phillips, who by Transfermarkt's estimations is valued at $28 million despite his lack of game time for Man City. It's a real shame that since making that dream move to Manchester, things just haven't unfolded the way Phillips would have wanted to in terms of game time. But he has been a key player for Gareth Southgate on the international stage, and who knows, maybe he could return to Ellen Road one day. David Raya spent 2 years in the Blackburn Academy before he was promoted to the senior team. The Spanish goalkeeper had some great years with Blackburn. He played a crucial part in their promotion from League One in 2018, and they eventually sold him for a profit when Brentford swooped in for him in 2019. Aged 28, he now finds himself as Arsenal's #1 goalkeeper, and with a market value of $32 million. It's fair to say that Jadon Sancho has had his struggles recently, but it's important to remember where he's come from and just how talented he was at one stage. Sancho's footballing journey started out with Watford before he was eventually picked up by Manchester City as a 14-year-old. Of course, the hype levels went into overdrive when Sancho was really sparkling for Borussia Dortmund. He then got his move to Manchester United on the back of that, but things seem a little bit prickly with his current situation. He's currently valued at $32 million. Ben Chilwell joined the Leicester City Academy aged 12 all the way back in 2009. He then made his senior debut for the club in 2015 and went on to make 123 appearances for the Foxes. They sold him for a substantial profit when Chelsea swooped in for him, and these days he holds down a market value of $35 million. Next up, and with a market value of $48 million, we have Jared Bowen. Now, the winger did start his career out with Hereford United, but he was snatched up by Hull City as a teenager and immediately thrown into their academy where he continued to progress. It didn't take long until Hull realised what a talent they had on their hands. Scoring 54 goals in 131 appearances for the Tigers, Hull fans knew that Bowen was destined for the top. He's since made over 100 Premier League appearances for the Hammers and has received 4 caps for England. Next up, and also coming in with a market value of $48 million these days, it's Ebere Eze. Now, looking back on Eze's youth career at this stage, it's absolutely fascinating given the career he's gone on to have. As a youngster, he spent time with Arsenal, Fulham, Reading and Millwall, but none of those clubs fancied him enough to hand him a senior contract. That was until he headed over to QPR, and luckily that's where the youngster really had his breakthrough. I remember Eze's last season with QPR in the Championship, especially that 19/20 season, and he was just like absolute lightning in a bottle. Now, QPR have been used to seeing these great playmakers over the years, you know, Adel Taarabt and players like that in years gone by, but Eze that season was just so smooth, and the goal and assist output was absolutely fantastic, and QPR fans knew right then that Eze was absolutely going to go on to be a star. He's continued to thrive for Crystal Palace in the Premier League, and he's even been given his England cap now. Coming in third place, we have Ben White, who's valued at $55 million in 2023, and in many ways he's really the one that got away from Southampton. White spent his formative years with the Saints but was ultimately let go age 16. The defender was then snapped up by Brighton, and after a series of successful loan spells, he really went ahead and had his breakthrough. White especially made a name for himself during his spell on loan with Leeds United, and nowadays he's smashing it for Arsenal after seamlessly transitioning into a right-back role. Coventry have produced some wonderful footballers over the years, but the pick of the bunch of the modern era absolutely has to be James Maddison, who's valued at a whopping £70 million by Transfermarkt in 2023. Maddison had some great years with Coventry in League One and was promptly snapped up by Norwich, where he continued to develop. Obviously the next stage of his career then with Leicester, and what we're seeing now with Tottenham is just on a completely new level, I think. Not only is Maddison one of the best number 10s in the Premier League right now, but I also think he's one of the most likeable characters as well. A fully fledged England international, Maddison takes second spot on today's video. But coming in and claiming the top spot, of course it's Birmingham's Jude Bellingham, with a whopping transfer valuation of 120 million in 2023. The fact that Bellingham made his senior debut for Birmingham as a 16-year-old, Blues fans knew from the off the scary potential that Bellingham had, but I don't think anyone could have predicted the career he's gone on to have. And Birmingham fans will be forever thankful to Bellingham, not just because of the fantastic flashes of quality they saw on the pitch, but also for what he did for the club when they were really in a time of financial crisis. On the back of him being sold for around 25 million, the club decided to retire the shirt number 22. And after some great years with Dortmund, he's now considered one of the best players in the world and is smashing it for Real Madrid. And what's scary is he's still only 20 years old. There we have it though guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. If you'd like to see some more videos in this sort of style, then do let me know in the comments down below and do show your support on today's video. 300 likes would be massively appreciated. But apart from that, thanks for tuning in guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.